Waking up at sunrise, kingdom in my eyes. Hustle every day, girl, you're on your way.
Thank you for joining us for the Making of a Female CEO, where we go beyond the Instagram-ready CEO to provide the behind-the-scenes grit that shapes and develops CEOs. Today, we have Patricia Stepler, a transformational coach and speaker dedicated to helping business owners and entrepreneurs get off the cash flow roller coaster to earning 6 and 7 figures annually. With a background in education, corporate training, and personal coaching with Bob Proctor, Patricia empowers her clients by blending mindset development, practical strategies, and universal laws to help them scale their business and achieve time and financial freedom. Patricia, welcome.
Thank you, Sophia.
We're going to jump right into it. What does
Okay.
happiness mean to you?
Happiness means having the ability to have friends and family around you, as well as being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it.
What does success mean to you?
Success is setting those goals and achieving them. Now, if you have a really lofty goal, you might not achieve it completely, but it's actually, when you set a goal, it's the progress as you're moving along and the things you discover about yourself. So anybody can be successful. I felt like I was a very successful educator. I had a great career there. I was doing, helping children the best I, knew how. I was a successful mom as I raised my 3 kids. So there's lots of ways to look at success. A lot of times we look at it as just a financial attribute and you're only successful if you're a multi-millionaire. That's not just what success is. Success can mean so many different things to so many different people. And you can have successes in various areas of your life.
Let's go beyond mindset shifts. So many coaches talk about shifting mindset. Not all of them address what happens after that. So once your clients have made a mindset shift, what are the most crucial next steps that they need to take to ensure that the change turns into tangible, lasting results?
All right. So one of the things that I learned through coaching with Bob Proctor was that you really have to go deep into your what we call paradigms. And these paradigms are formed in your subconscious mind, and they're habits. And some habits we have are very good habits and they help us, but other habits are not so good. And so it's really a matter of being able to figure out which habits are serving you well and which ones are not. And then you have to learn to build a new paradigm, one that's going to support your goal. So one of the things I see a lot with the people I coach is, for some reason, someplace in their background, they feel that maybe they weren't good enough, or somebody may have said something to them that maybe they would never achieve anything, or that it wasn't possible for them to do something, but other people can. And there's just no truth to that. Those ideas get so buried inside our subconscious mind. And so what we have to do is to figure out where they're coming from, why they were there, and then what we can do to shift them, to put in a new paradigm, one that's going to support what they want. They're doing that. The mindset shift is that new paradigm. What they have to constantly do is, those paradigms are very strong. And if you allow them, they'll come back very easily, because your subconscious mind's there to protect you and to keep you safe. And because it's there to keep you safe, it also wants to keep you from stretching beyond your comfort zone. But you're never going to achieve anything more than what you have today if you don't go beyond that comfort zone. So you have to constantly, it's a battle, and you have to keep reinforcing what it is that you want. And I give my clients different techniques, different ideas as to how to keep reinforcing that. And every time that paradigm starts to creep up that you do not want, you have to shut it down and go back to, what it is that you do want.
You talked about every time something comes up that you do not want. Let's make it personal. What is a mindset shift that you can share that you underwent?
Okay. So for myself, it was a matter of, so one of the paradigms you have is confidence. And that's a huge one, because that's where you've been impacted so much. So for me, when I first started my business, I came from the education world. Well, one of the reasons I went into corporate training was that I wanted to be able to rub shoulders with business people, because I thought, if I'm going to be training business people, I better understand business people. What I found is that, they have the same issues that educators have with children, as far as the same thought process or the difficulties that they have. But one of the things I had to overcome was my feeling of inferiority around business people and that I didn't know enough. And that came from my own paradigm, thinking, what do I know about business? What do I know about working with these people? And what I came to realize is there was a lot of similarities, but I had to build my own confidence. I had to see that I was deserving of having the success that I wanted. I had to see that I did know things that I could share with business people and that I was capable of that. So that was a huge mindset shift that I needed. And I had to keep reminding myself that I was capable. So I think confidence is huge, especially with women. I think a lot of times as women, we may have been told at some point, even if it was an unconscious idea, that we were not good enough or that we were not capable. And so I think confidence is one that everybody needs to overcome. You can't work hard enough on your own self-image. And for women, I think in particular, you just have to keep building that. And you have to start watching every time you do have a success and say, but I did this, I accomplished this. If I can do that, I can do something else. And that was another thing for me because social media was not something I felt comfortable with. I did not feel comfortable being on camera, and I didn't think I needed to do it. And when I first started in social media, I was so out of my realm of knowledge. And it was frustrating to the point where sometimes I just felt like it was going to break down in tears because I did not understand what was going on. In the same way with different software. But then I kept working at it. And as I worked at it, I learned it. And now I'm to the point where, if I have to learn new software, I know I can figure it out. And while it may be uncomfortable for a while, I've done it before, I can do it again. And that's the kind of attitude you have to have as you're building your business, as you're, just building your own confidence to look back at the successes that you have had and say, if I could do that, I can do this too.
That is so great about what you're talking about is making sure you stack your winnings. We've talked about that a few times on our show about how, you should start your day off with a win and those little wins build up as you have them. And the one thing that I was hearing when you were talking about confidence, I think is that imposter syndrome. That thing can eat at your confidence.
Right.
Because you may have a very confident woman, but if you've got imposter syndrome coming in, knocking at that door, it chips away at your confidence.
Right.
So
and I often think of it as having that angel and devil on your shoulder and one saying one thing and one saying the other. And you've got to get rid of the devil and listen to the angel.
So let's talk about transformational catalysts. You experienced a powerful transformation when your son manifested a full college scholarship, which led you to delve into the law of attraction. What was the single most surprising or counterintuitive lesson that you learned through that experience? And how did it influence your coaching style or how you ran your company?
Right. So previous to my son getting this scholarship, I had done personal development pretty much my entire adult life. And I call it more traditional style where you set goals and sub goals. And, it wasn't using the law of attraction. It was just using more, like I'm going to call non ideas. And while I did have some success with it, I didn't have the success that I wanted. So when my son told me he was going to get this college scholarship when he was 12, he told me he was going to be a collegiate athlete and he was going to get the scholarship. I didn't believe him. But I also never told him I didn't believe him because I didn't want to steal his dream. So I thought, oh, this is so cute. Isn't he wonderful? And I'll just let him believe in his little fantasy because I did not believe it. And then when he chose baseball, college coaches would tell you there's no money in baseball at the collegiate level. And, if you think your son's going to get a full scholarship, forget it. So I knew that again, because the coaches would talk to the parents at these various events, but I didn't know if he knew it. And I didn't share that with him. Then when we went to the school and we went to the admissions office and they said, well, you could probably get a third to half of your scholarship. I thought, well, that's pretty good. And so when he actually got this full scholarship, it was such a surprise to me. But at that moment, I knew he had caused it to happen, but I didn't know how. I'd never heard of the law of attraction. I'd never heard of manifesting your goals. I'd never heard those words being used. but I knew that he had done it. And, that night that he got the scholarship, while I was super excited for him, I was super angry with myself because I thought, what have I accomplished in my life? And I'm the one that did all this personal development, went to multiple seminars a year, purchased books, did, CDs, programs, so on. And he gets this magnificent full scholarship. So that's when I had to figure it out because I knew there was an answer. And it's kind of funny. I'd heard the name Bob Proctor, never gone run across him. He was never at any of the seminars I went to. I never had any of his materials. And when things just happen in a funny way, and he came across my computer one day, and I'm like, this man knows the answer. And he did. And I couldn't get enough of learning from him because, like I said, I'd never heard some of those terms before. And again, I felt a little uncomfortable. But he had the answers. And so then for the next few years, I kept explaining to my son what he had done because he didn't know. He just followed the laws. He was what we call an unconscious competent. And he couldn't repeat it until he knew what he had done, because that's what happens. We've probably all in our lives manifested something that was exciting to us, but we couldn't repeat it because we didn't understand what we had done. And that's why my son was. And now now that he just keeps going from one goal to another.
It's all energy. And the fact that you were raising your kids and your son in this case in that. I can see though the frustration of you doing the work and watching somebody else get the result. But that's so great that you went back and reinforced it in him to like actually become conscious about how he was doing it. Let's go now and look at from academic to entrepreneurial thinking. So you having transitioned from education to corporate training and then to entrepreneurship, what would you say is the key difference between academic thinking and entrepreneurial thinking? And what did you have to deal with in your own transition?
I think one of the funniest stories was when I was at my first training as a consultant with Procter Gallagher. Bob was talking and he said, the first thing you need to do is to go from your annual income and make it a monthly income. And because I was still teaching at the time, I'm sitting there in this meeting where we're all entrepreneurs. We've all purchased into this business. And I'm thinking, well, I can't do that because even our superintendent doesn't make that kind of money. So I was still stuck in that thinking of being on a career ladder. And there was only so much money that as a teacher, you just go up the steps. You don't even have the opportunity for bonuses and things like that. And so my mindset was so stuck there. And so I really had to work on my thinking to overcome and to realize that you can't get locked into those limiting beliefs. And that's what it was. And so as an entrepreneur, you really have to expand your thought process and look at what's possible. And instead of getting stuck, you have to keep envisioning what it is that you want. And I know one of my first clients I worked with, the wife was actually the business owner. And she also was in that education realm, and they were moving into entrepreneurship. He was, well, still employed at that time. He was the visionary. And there was such a contrast. I think that was so interesting to work with them because she had this very linear thinking, and he was just, well, look at the possibilities. And he would just keep expanding on the vision. And she would get actually frustrated because his vision was bigger than what she could believe. So I think that's one of the biggest things as an entrepreneur. You really have to start thinking bigger. And then you have to look at, well, who do you need to become next? Because the person you are today is not the person you need to be to accomplish those goals. And so you have to think about, how do I have to change as a person? What do I need to do differently? And that to me is just like unleashing your mind to connect again with the universe, which might sound a little woo-woo, but connect with what's out there to expand your own ideas and be a part of the possibilities of what could be.
I love the whole woo-woo thing because it does sometimes hit people that have not been in art training. It does hit them as that. So balancing the law of attraction with business foundations. Let's talk about that. So you emphasize leveraging the law of attraction while also building strong business foundation. How do you strike that balance between the woo trusting in manifestation and practicing that, and ensuring practical business steps are in place, especially for those that are new to entrepreneurship.
So that is the thing that hit me, I think, the most when I started, because I was trying to learn all this information about the law of attraction and how to visualize what it is that I wanted. And at the same time, I needed to build a strong foundation. And I did not do that. I was doing things way before I was ready. So even though you have that vision, you still got to do something. You've got to take action. However, if you don't do the action in a logical order, you can get yourself in a lot of expense and unneeded money flowing out and not enough coming in. And that's exactly what I did. And there were things I did not know. I did not know that I needed to really brand myself and to get my message down first so that people actually could relate. And so I was missing pieces. And that's why I really emphasize with entrepreneurs and people that I work with that you really have to figure out what it is you want, who you're working with, what your messaging is going to be, and then building a plan of action that makes sense and not one where you're wasting a lot of money and time doing things you shouldn't be doing yet.
Let's go through and talk now about the unseen obstacles. So many business owners face hidden obstacles that keep them stuck in that cash flow roller coaster. What are some of the less obvious or often overlooked internal barriers that you struggled with, and how did you overcome those?
I think my biggest thing was messaging early on, and not really not finding the clients that I wanted, because what I did with the Proctor Gallagher Institute works with any business and it works with any person, because it's just using the universal laws. And the universal laws are working within us, whether we realize it or not. And so I think that was one of the biggest obstacles, that I really needed to get my message honed in to who really needed me and who was really going to be inspired by what I was saying. So I think that was the first thing. And then it was just a matter of, okay, so now where do I go from here? Where do I go next? How do I find those people? And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, because I'll run into people and they'll say, well, I do this and I do that and I do this and that. And yes, I know that, but let's find one, maybe two things that we can hone in on and get you moving. And that seems to be the biggest problem that I see with people and why they get stuck. And I relate, because I was there too. And, it's just, sometimes you also need to hear things over and over again. And that was one thing that you think you know something because you were told it once. It's just like when you're in school, you don't learn how to add one day and that's it. And they never cover it again. And that's the way we learn, through repetition. And sometimes you have to hear something from a little different angle, and you have to hear it again and again till it finally hits, or till it sinks in as to why it is so important to get your messaging down to who you're talking to first. Then you can spread it and, open up to other avenues and other things to do, but figure out, just the first client or two. And I think a lot of people, the other thing I see is people get really discouraged. And, if I hadn't had encouragement from others and hadn't worked with different coaches, I would have gotten very discouraged early on, because when those obstacles get in your way, sometimes they seem like you can't get around it. And there's always a way, because I do believe one of the things I've learned is that when you're given an idea, you have all the skill and talent to do it, but you do have to figure it out. It's not going to be given to you. And you have to discover those talents and skills that you have inside, but you have to be persistent. And if you're not persistent, it's almost like sometimes those obstacles get put in your way as a test. How badly do you want this? And I think for a couple of years, I wasn't sure how badly I wanted it. And so those obstacles would get in my way, but I would keep pursuing it until I finally reached, I think it's someplace you hit a point of, it's going to happen no matter what. And that's what Napoleon Hill calls, it's got to be a burning desire. You have to want it so badly that you're willing to risk part of your life to go after it.
Yes, that whole wanting it more than oxygen. I think parents can relate to this. If you would tell your kids something, and all of a sudden they hear it from an A-lister or a peer, something you've been trying to tell them for probably a long period of time, and all of a sudden they're just sharing with you like, oh, so told me this and it makes so much sense, and you just want to, and
Yeah.
it goes to that what you're talking about.
You know,
Yeah,
what's even more rewarding than that is when one of your kids will say something to you, and all of a sudden you're like, geez, they were listening to me. And that's happened to me
yeah.
from all three of my children
Mm.
have said things in different times. Oh, they did hear me. So that's really rewarding.
What's the biggest lesson in business that you've learned?
To not do things before you're ready. That's my biggest
Oh,
lesson. I would listen to people. I was chasing that shiny object. I wanted to find the answer. I was so desperate to figure out what it was I needed that I would chase after anything. And what I realized was I chased things before I was ready. For an example, I did training with this guy on Facebook ads. Well, first of all, I'd have been better off just to hire somebody to do my Facebook ads than for me to learn how to do Facebook ads. But secondly, I wasn't ready because I didn't have the message down. And so anything I did went no place because my message wasn't honed in. And he didn't, I'll just say he didn't have the skills to realize that was the problem. I wasted a lot of time and money chasing after that, which I should have been just doing posting and getting my face out there and doing short videos and things like that, rather than trying to do Facebook ads. So I felt like I did a lot of things out of order. And like I said, branding, I thought branding was a logo and colors. And when somebody told me what branding was, I'm like, oh, I don't have that. And I should have had that early on. I was a couple years into my business before I ever did any type of branding and really took the time to think about it. So I think that's what I try to prevent other people from doing is to get things in the right order so that you're not wasting all that time and money like I did.
Sequencing. What would you like to say to women who are just starting their companies or women who have been on the court and they keep hitting walls?
I say just keep persisting. And the other thing you need to do is make sure you're doing things in order. And I do have a gift, the $1 Million Checklist. And you have to get some help and some assistance because you can't possibly know everything. So it's really important to have some coaching or some support along the way and not try to figure out on your own. I think one thing, it looks like doing things online is so easy, and it can be, but you also have to have some background as to how to get things moving. And that can be frustrating for people. The other thing, I also do a monthly workshop where we talk about some of the elements, like how to make a good lead magnet, how to think about your branding, how to get your messaging down, how to be more productive. There's different topics I do different months. And it also goes back to the mindset, because the mindset, it's foundational. And you have to have the right mindset to keep your business moving.
The 2 free offers that you've graciously made available to our audience are going to be in the description below. Thank you for sharing these valuable nuggets of wisdom with us today. Your insights are ones people need to hear multiple times from different angles and perhaps from different sources. And you've also emphasized the importance of doing things in the right order, knowing the next step, and focusing solely on that. And we're incredibly grateful for the clarity you've brought to our listeners. Most women only have the Instagram ready CEO to model after. And this channel provides behind the scenes grit that shapes and develops CEOs. If this speaks to you, please schedule your interview shown in the description below. Your story could inspire the next generation. Let's make the journey real and visible.
Waking up at sunrise, tears are in my eyes. Hustle every day, girl, you're on your way. Steady, strong and tall.